And now it's time for this week's Parsha. Joining me in the studio is Rabbi Lipman. Thanks so much for coming in.
Sure, to be here.
So tell us about this week's Parsha.
So this Parsha is Parshat Va'etchanan, and Va'etchanan is actually the beginning of the Parsha where Moses describes how he pleaded with God to let him come into the land of Israel. Just to remind ourselves, Moses was punished, and even though he's the one who led the Jews out of Egypt, he leads them through the desert, he was punished because of a mistake that he made, and he was not allowed to enter the land. And he pleads, and he pleads, and he pleads with God to the point that God says, stop, it's enough. You're not going in. You'll be able to stand on a mountain and see the land, but you're not actually going in. That's part one of the Parsha. And then towards the later parts of the Parsha, we have two very important parts. One is the Shema, which is the verse, Hear, O Israel, where Jews proclaim that God is one, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God is one, a verse which has had meaning throughout our history in very important moments, and the Ten Commandments are actually repeated in this week's portion. So we sort of span
so this covers
a few different
everything.
things, correct.
Wow, so tell me about the message that it sends when we hear Moses pleading like this and not being allowed to enter the land of Israel.
So there are moments when I read that, and first of all, it's heartbreaking to see how badly he wants to come. But I think that for people, especially in our times, we have to gain an appreciation for we are allowed to come into the land of Israel, meaning to see how badly Moses wanted to just come into the land, even if he's going to die soon afterwards, just to be here. And today, wherever you are in the world, you can get on a jumbo jet, watch a few movies, be fed a few meals, and you can be here and walk here freely. I think we have to be so appreciative to God for giving us the land now, giving it back to us, and giving us opportunities to come. So sort of learn from Moshe's sadness, from Moses' sadness, and just appreciate the incredible times that we live, that we can be in this special land.
Absolutely. And now when we're talking about the Ten Commandments, how does this apply to our lives?
I think it's, the Ten Commandments really on a certain level changed civilization. You're talking about the first time where we have this idea of, first of all, believing God. Move away from the pagan world, which was the entire civilization at that time. But then these basic rules of don't kill, don't steal, adultery, not even being jealous of what other people have, honoring your parents. And by the way, even the Sabbath. Even if people don't take it to the point of keeping the Sabbath the way maybe religious Jews do, the idea of taking one day and detaching ourselves from the craziness of day-to-day life and focusing on what's important. These are monumental ideas which were passed over in the Ten Commandments, which every single one of them applies to us today. And I would advise everyone, open up the Bible and take a look at them, and each person to themselves can internalize how it's meaningful to them.
Well, this week is a reminder that that's there for you to look at to kind of help guide your life. So now let's also talk about Tu B'Av, because today is a special holiday. It's kind of like Israel's Valentines Day. And there's a very special history to this holiday as well. Tell us about how it was celebrated in the past.
There is. In the past, it talks about in our tradition that this was a day which was couples' day, where men and women would meet. Women would go out and dance in the vineyards and in the fields, and men would come, and that's how they would meet each other. It was sort of a day where we want people to be able to connect to one another, perhaps especially on the heels, now we can say, of the sadness of the 3 weeks leading up to the 9th of Av, which was commemorated earlier this week. And now we're sort of free to be happy, and let's rebuild families and show the continuity of the Jewish people. But it's an amazing thing to see this idea in a religious tradition. Sometimes in religion we associate separating the genders, and there's not so much intermingling of the genders, and yet in our tradition there was this day where we said, go meet each other, see each other, and let's create new families based on this. And I think it really captures that idea of the continuity of the Jewish people, sort of going from the mourning that we had earlier in the week and the sadness, but saying despite what we've experienced in our history, we are continuing and we are starting new families, and men and women should meet each other and be attracted to each other and create this new family together. It sort of shows that continuity of the Jewish people and our look to the future. And
you know what's so beautiful, you were telling me about this a little bit before, but you said that the way that women dress, they all dress to look similarly, which I think is a very interesting message, especially when we talked about this earlier, judging one another, trying to look at everybody with the same eyes, you know?
And not to be grabbed by
Right.
false externals, which can mislead. Sometimes,
Exactly.
oh, there's money in that family, maybe I'll go towards that family. But the idea that judge the person for who they are and see the person for who they are without those externals, that's also a very Jewish concept in our tradition. We talk about, you know, that marriage and relationships have to be based on who the person is and not based on, you know, people can sort of put on the outsides, and you have to sort of penetrate and understand who they really are. That's a very important message of this day as well. And that's part of the celebration, I think, also, is that we sort of removed any facades.
Right, all the women dressed exactly the same way.
Correct, and they can see each other for who they are.
That's beautiful. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful day celebrating this romantic holiday. Thank you so much for coming in, Rabbi.
Sure, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.